Welcome back to Cross Politic. With us in the studio today is Senator Dan Foreman. This segment is brought to you by Corona. With
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hey, man.
With a little bit of salt in it.
I saw it bubble up over there on you.
Earlier I put the salt in it and it was overflowing.
That's what you got to put your mouth on it when you do it. So
kind of like that last segment.
You got to chug it.
It just overflowed.
overflowed.
So
wow.
We were talking before the show, but I just want to give our listeners a little bit of background on who you are, Dan. You mentioned this the first segment. You were in did you say Air Force?
Right. I was in for 30 years.
30 years.
Wow. You were a lifer.
Yeah, I was. I went through ROTC, Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, and was able to get commissioned second lieutenant and went in and spent most of my career flying airplanes.
Yeah.
And it was great. We got to travel and you learn a lot. You meet a lot of really neat people. And the best part about it is you get to leave America and then kind of turn around and look at it over your shoulder and compare it to other countries.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you there's nothing out there that compares with the USA.
Yeah.
A lot of good people.
Sure.
Great people, great countries. God bless them all. But when you come back to America, you have an overwhelming urge to kiss the ground.
That's so true.
If we had all day, I could give you about 10 million reasons why.
And Dan, you said you're married and you have seven?
Right.
Seven children.
Oh, wow.
Man.
And how many grandchildren?
19 at last count.
At last count.
There you go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you were a police officer for 10 years?
Almost 12,
Almost
11 and a half in Moscow.
A little bit of real estate.
Yep, sold real estate and had our own business.
And now you're a senator.
Right.
For what is this? Is it
District
5.
5.
District
5.
Benoit County and Latah County.
And you just got back from your first session.
Right.
3 months, is that what you said?
Yeah, about 3 months.
And so tell us about it.
Well, it was interesting. It wasn't quite what I expected. I expected to walk into the hallowed halls of conservatism.
Right.
At the Capitol building.
Right. And this is Idaho.
Idaho halls of conservatism.
It's Idaho.
It's kind of a conservative state.
One of the most conservative states. And I walked in and met a lot of great people. And I want to preface my remarks that this is just my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody else. And I did meet a lot of great senators and representatives. They are dedicated people. They're very well educated. And I think they really all mean well. But when I walked into the hallowed halls, I found out it was the hallowed halls of Rhino Land. Republican in name only.
Right.
And that surprised me because this is Idaho, and it's
Wow.
not supposed to be that way, but it is that way. And I tell people that. And again, they're all good legislators. They mean well. I think they just need to stop playing politics. Stop worrying quite so much about getting reelected. And I understand they want to be reelected. That's human nature.
People like to be liked.
Yeah, they like to be liked. They run from interpersonal controversy. They don't want to be in the eye of the media if it's in relation to a contentious issue. Mm-hmm. Again, because it's politics. It's the land of politics. Yeah. And it gets in the way.
Why did you get involved in politics in the first place?
Well, I didn't. I didn't, and I did. I ran for sheriff here.
Okay.
And narrowly lost that race. And we have a good sheriff. The guy who won is a good man, and I think he's doing a good job, and more power to him.
Yeah.
But we had a young man who was running. He was the nominee, the Republican nominee for the Senate. The last minute he quit. So Secretary of State gave the Republican Party up here in District 5 a couple of weeks to come up with a candidate.
Choose a candidate.
Yeah, and I eventually got a phone call, and they asked me if I would be interested in doing it. And I thought it was a joke at first. You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And
you guys don't know who you're asking.
Yeah, but they said, no, we're serious. Yeah. You just ran a good race. Your name is out there. People know who you are.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to stand up and speak in front of a crowd and put the word out. You know how to campaign. And so I said, okay, give me 24 hours to sleep on it, and called the next day. And my wife and I had talked, and we said, all right, we'll help. We'll do what we can.
Yeah.
And immediately the phone calls and nasty emails were coming in. You'll never win. You'll never beat the Democrat. This is Moscow. We know you're a conservative. all that kind of stuff.
Was that coming in from like our own conservative camp, or?
No, it was, well, there were a few people who rolled their eyes who were conservatives and
Sure.
said, well, man, you're going to have a tough time beating this incumbent.
Yeah.
And, but most of it came from the hardcore liberal contingent in Moscow. Pretty nasty, pretty rude, pretty vulgar at times. And,
really?
Liberals.
Yeah, liberals. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like they
They're
felt
inclusive.
threatened, though.
Well,
I mean, if they're coming after you like that.
I think they looked at the age of the young man who preceded me, the gentleman who quit, and they thought they were going to have an easy go because he was so young.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I came in and they went, okay, the game just changed.
Got a little more serious.
Now we got a 63-year-old guy who's been around the block and knows everybody around town. So it changed. And my wife and I, and she was with me every step of the way, we worked it very, very hard. We went to the heart of the enemy camp. We didn't campaign in conservative land. We campaigned in liberal land, which is Moscow.
Yeah.
And I think, drew quite a few votes away from the center of the road or slightly left camp.
You had
to.
Say.
Yeah.
To win, you had to, right?
And we won by the standard margin. It was like 330 votes, which is 1-point-something%. And that's the way it goes in District 5 because it's a split district.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
this last 3 months, it's you said you didn't run into the halls of conservatism. It was Rhino land.
Right.
Can you give us some examples? I mean, especially just for our Idaho listeners, like what are some of the places where you were surprised at the lack of conservatism?
And you came in with a splash.
Well, I did.
Right?
I was counseled again by many. In politics, if somebody's counseling, you're best to ignore the advice. But, they said, keep your eyes open and your ears open and your mouth shut and just sit here and be a bump on the log your first
Just
2
collect
sessions.
that check.
Yeah,
Take your welfare.
Right. In other words, pass up
Represent us well, Dan.
Yeah, pass up the opportunity to do any of the things you said you were going to do. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I had a list of bills I wanted to run, and at the top was the anti-abortion bill. So I jumped in, made a splash with that. But to get back to your question about Rhino land, what really surprised me was when the appropriations bills started coming through at the end of the session. Now, I know there's a process and it takes time, but it'd be nice if they could get those to us a little quicker. Everybody just wanted to vote yes.
Huh.
Don't rock the boat. Don't vote no, because then the bill has to go back. It has to be reworked, and we might have to stay here longer. And I don't know what the overarching concern was there, but they just rubber stamp. Yes. And I voted no. Lots of times the vote was 34-1. I was the one dissenting vote.
Wow.
And everybody was cordial about it. Nobody ever beat me up about it, but
That's because you didn't win. Yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. And again, senators would comment, well, there was a lot of fat in that bill, but I voted for it anyway. I understand their concerns. That's the problem with our government. It hasn't learned to live within its means because our people haven't learned to live within their means. Everybody wants everything. They're choking on government pork.
Yeah.
And it has to stop.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So tell us about the anti-abortion bill that
let's get into that.
you brought up. Can you describe what the bill, what it was, and how did it go?
It was pretty simple. I kind of modeled it after a petition that I tumbled to up in Coeur d'Alene, and that petition is still out there somewhere, I'm sure. And I made some changes to it. I took it over to the Legislative Support Office where they screen the laws and all the different things you need to know when you're putting a bill together. And basically what it boiled down to was it said we're going to leave the law the way it is because the laws in Idaho say abortion is murder. If you kill an embryo or a fetus, it's murder. If you do it deliberately with intent, it's first-degree murder.
Wow.
And it's also aggravated battery. However, Idaho Code provides an affirmative defense. It says these things are murder. We accept that in Idaho, but we're not going to prosecute you in the case of illegal abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So all I wanted to do
That's what
was,
it says in the current
and
statute.
And I've got all those codes here with me, but so I just wanted to drop that part that provides the affirmative defense.
Right, so just repeal that part of the policy.
That was it. Now, I took it to the Attorney General's office for a review, which I did with most of my bills, a legal review. And I talked to a deputy AG who was very cordial and very helpful, and he liked my bill, but he said it's never going to fly legally because of Casey versus Planned Parenthood and Roe versus Wade.
What's Casey versus Planned Parenthood?
Well, I think that was in 1992,
Okay.
And it was similar to the Roe v. Wade. It talked about the 14th Amendment and a woman's right to privacy, and it kind of crystallized this thought that a woman has a constitutional right
To abortion.
to an abortion.
Yeah.
And the deputy AG said, I like the bill, but the bill's going to get challenged and it's going to wind up in court. And I says, good. Yeah. That's where we want to go. Well, that's not where the state wanted to go.
Right. No one wants to go to trial.
Yeah. And they said, we'd probably lose in district court, federal district court, and then we'd wind up appealing it and might lose again, and then we could push for the U.S. Supreme Court, but they didn't want to go that route, and I knew they wouldn't. But what I wanted was...
why didn't they want to go that route? Why do you think they didn't want to take this all the way to the Supreme Court? Because I know David, my black friend over here, would appreciate that if it was 1860.
Well, yeah, that was going to ask the question is like, when you say these are good guys, I just wonder, are their consciences seared to the point that they don't understand the moral issue that's behind this and the reason to fight? Because someone comes and says, hey, look, I know that these people are human beings, but slavery is it's just what it is, man, and we'll lose this in court. Right. It'd just be good to know that somebody's fighting and not just giving up before the fight even starts.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they have a tendency, and I can give you other examples of they put up the white flag before the first shot's fired.
Yeah.
And they did this on another abortion issue, which hopefully we can talk about real quick. But
yeah, I want
to answer your question, no, they're not ignorant of the moral issues or what's operative here. They understand it full well, but they're numb. Yeah. They've been numbed by society's response to this issue over the decades.
Yeah.
Lots of good people, and you look at them and go, why don't you support this? And they go, hey, Senator, it's the law. Well, okay, but if the people don't like the law, they change the bloody law. That's the way our country works.
Right.
We're not enslaved to the Supreme Court, to 9 lawyers wearing black robes.
Right.
If they do something that violates the state of Idaho's constitution or moral conscience, we have not only a moral obligation, but a legal right to stand up and say, no, not in Idaho. We're not going to do this.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to have happen. I think we took a big step down that road. And then there's always next session. We can try something else maybe, or maybe the same bill. We did get a lot of media coverage, and that's good because people will start thinking.
So what happened with your bill?
I couldn't get it into committee for a hearing. The committee chair was a real gentleman about it.
Now, these are people on your team, right? So these are people.
These are all Republicans.
These are Republicans.
Dominant Republicans.
Who you're trying to get them to say, hey, guys, let's put forth this bill together as a unit so that we can vote on it. Get it inside of get it heard, right? Maybe even pass a law to save lives.
Exactly.
And you couldn't even get people on your team to say, hey, let's do it.
Sadly, that is correct.
Wow.
I couldn't get a hearing, which means I couldn't get a bill number. If you don't get a bill number, it doesn't go to debate on the floor, or it doesn't go to debate in committee, full committee, and then it never makes it to the floor of the Senate.
So how come you can't even get a hearing in the first place? Like, what do? Do they have some sort of, they can just tell you, no, we aren't going to give you a hearing?
The committee chairman can tell you, no.
It's guarded by one person.
One person.
So we got to get you on the chair.
Well, that's a
that's what we need to do then.
Yeah, that'd be something. That's a bottleneck in our system, and I've complained about it quite a bit. One person on a committee. There's 9 folks on the committee, but the chairman can go, nah, we don't want to look at your bill. So it never sees the light of day. I say, let the 9 people discuss it and vote on it.
Ooh, question.
Yeah.
What's the name of the person on the chair?
I was going to go there. Who's the chair?
That didn't let this go through.
Yeah, it was Jeff Sidaway, but in his defense, I think he supported the bill. And he gave me a chance. He says, you go to the other 8 people on the committee, and if you can get, I think it was either 4 or 5 of them to be even close to supporting, he says, I'll give you the hearing. So he was a gentleman about it. I think he wanted to do the hearing.
I'm sorry, no offense, but that sounds cowardly to me.
Well,
I mean, just straight up. I'm sorry. If take a stand,
this is a life
be the
issue.
man. If this is a life issue,
right?
And you can say, you know what? How about we make everybody else get on board? I remember a little story.
You're gonna say that to the next little baby that's gonna get chopped up in Idaho.
Well, I remember a little story in the Bible where there was these two different camps, and there was this valley in between them, and you had all these afraid men on one side, and these afraid,
was there a giant on one side?
There was a giant, right, on this one side.
Yeah.
And there's this little boy coming to see his brothers.
Teenager.
Yeah, teenage boy.
He's like, hey, what's going on?
And he goes out to this battle that nobody else wanted to fight by himself and kills the giant.
Right. Yeah.
And because of that, made the army of God empowered to want to go and fight.
Right.
So you don't really need to get 3 or 4 or 8 guys to agree with you. You just need somebody who fears the Lord and is willing to say,
Amen.
we're going to throw this first rock.
Amen.
You know?
Right.
And so, I mean, that just sounds cowardly. That's exactly what cowardly is to me. Is not being that man.
And well, and I go back to I mean, I'm with you. I mean, you're gonna tell the little ones, right? These little ones who's having their lives snuffed out. Well, if we can get 4 other guys, 5 other guys,
we just need just a little more consensus,
and we all agree.
A little more consensus.
Here's the thing: we all agree.
Right.
We know that this is murder. We know that this is wrong. Like we actually agree to that.
Did the other people on the committee agree with you that abortion is wrong?
No,
So
I found too that
wouldn't agree.
I thought that would probably support it. I'm telling you guys,
wow,
they're just people are numb to it.
So Dan, you were talking about Idaho saying no, right? The Supreme Court, feds saying you got to allow this, and Idaho saying no. We've talked quite a bit on this show over the last number of months about the whole kind of nullification thing and just state sovereignty and states needing to step up. Who did we talk to about the federal lands thing?
That was Russ Fulcher.
Russ Fulcher.
We had Russ on about that.
We talked to him.
Ken DeVries too, I think.
Maybe Ken DeVries as well, but Russ was the one that pointed out to us that it's some gigantic portion of the Idaho budget.
Yeah, that's right.
That's compensated by federal funds, where they're sort of like they've taken all our land and they're like, but we'll pay you for it. And so there's a lot of fear that if Idaho says no, then the feds start pulling funding.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting topic. We need to. And I've preached this from the rooftops down there in Boise. We need to wean ourselves off of the federal dollar because, quite frankly, I don't want to use the word blackmailed, but that's what it boils down
Absolutely. to. Well, whoever's paying the money gets the say.
They go, here's your money, guys. Before you take it, you have to agree to this and this and this and this. And Idaho, don't quote me on this, but they get roughly 1/3 of their budget.
That's what I think it is. Something like that's what I remember Russ saying.
It's huge,
is the governor going to stand up to the feds and say, hey, you can't do that in Idaho? Well, I don't think so, and I think he's got a lot of dollars and cents reasons why.
I got another story about this, about eating the king's meat.
But Washington,
isn't there proverbs about that?
Washington and Colorado and these other states are saying we're going to smoke pot.
Yep.
Hey, we're going to be sanctuary cities. Come on,
I mean, people are doing it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let my blood kind of settle while we get ready to come back and talk.
Don't let it settle.
No, all right, then I'm gonna be completely upset. More with our senator next on Cross Politics.